Google has agreed to form an AI cloud business with Blackstone in a bid to create 500 megawatts in computing capacity by next year. The project will be majority owned by Blackstone, which is providing an initial $5 billion in equity capital. Let's get more detail now. We can bring in Neil Campling, Bloomberg senior strategist. Morning, Neil. So what does this deal tell us about the race to build data centre capacity then?
Well, let's put the capacity in context. This deal itself is less than 1% of the capacity for data centre build-out that's been announced this year alone. Data that we've seen says that over 100 gigawatts of capacity have been announced so far this year. To put that in context, that is the size of the entire installed base of power of Germany. And that's just the additional capacity being announced. So it's a huge number, obviously. And this deal is basically telling us that we can expect a lot of these kind of JVs, combinations to help fund the capacity that's rolling out, to help fund sort of the enormous compute power that is required. Now, another piece of research recently suggests that 60% of data center announcements so far this year are likely to be delayed in terms of the build-out. That could be in terms of local regulations, governments, it could be capacity, it could be related to the memory crunch, which is obviously front and central people's minds. So there are many reasons for the delays to these to the capacities. There's funding requirements, clearly, but there is clearly a massive race in terms of the amount of this required power. So this power that's been announced so far is for the next 15 years in terms of that combined capacity. But there's just no end in sight to the compute demands for data center build-outs for AI.
OK. Well, speaking of AI, we've also had this closely watched verdict in Elon Musk's legal battle with OpenAI, a federal jury rejecting Musk's claim, finding he waited too long to sue the company. Does that clear the way for an OpenAI IPO then?
As long as we don't get an attempt to take it back into the courts, clearly it would have been very difficult for OpenAI, I think, to come to the market when there was this massive overhang in terms of the ownership structure and who had rights. This does clear a path, and because this year is such a huge year for the big tech and AI-based IPOs, now is the opportune time to come to market. So I think once we get past another big IPO that's taking place that also is related to Mr. Musk's involvement, then absolutely we're likely to, I think, to OpenAI to come to market probably in that window in terms of late third quarter, where people often try and place IPOs when they can.
Of course, you're talking about SpaceX. Do we have any clues on the timing for that? And you know, when you're talking to people, how sceptical are they about the valuation?
The valuation is the big question. It's very difficult to get a sense of where the valuation will pitch. Obviously, there's been a change as to what goes into that particular business in terms of SpaceX has now been combined with XAI, for example, but the profit is being driven by the low-orbit satellites. And so the questions around the valuation are going to be a key consideration for investors to try and understand the future projection. But again, that particular deal is not only about a test for the valuation around Musk Inc. and the valuation around SpaceX, but also to get a sense of how we are pricing these deals in the AI landscape when, as we say, OpenAI and Anthropic are likely to follow down the path for the IPOs this year.